Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
All right. Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. We are back at STG Presents, this beautiful Paramount Theater. And this week, y'all know, if you watched the episode yesterday, we are continuing this discussion around what we are doing around community safety. You know, specifically gun safety. Right now, we have 100 Days of Action, which is connected to this 100 Days of Peace. And we want to hear from folks about what they are doing during this time to really elevate the solutions that they are working on and that community members can engage with. So today I'm really excited because I got Eleuthra Lisch in the building. We're going to be talking about the Regional Office for Gun Violence Prevention. And later on in the show, we're going to speak to one of the youth, Jamoni Owens. He's going to give us his perspective on all of this work and how he's tapping into it. But of course, you know, y'all, it's the top of the show. So it's the perfect time for you to share this show with folks who you feel could benefit from the daily dose of dopeness we're giving you here on the Day with Trae. And if you cannot watch our TV show, we always have you covered because you can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and the Day with Trae, and you'll find us on whichever platform is your favorite. Well, up next, y'all, really excited because Eleuthra is back in the building with me in this beautiful building. How are you today?
So good to see you in such a beautiful setting to get to see you elevating this important conversation.
Well, thank you so much. And your office is newer. So I know we've talked about it in the past, but for some of the guests who maybe haven't actually learned more about this regional office, tell us a bit about your title there and what you all are doing.
Thanks, Trae. I really appreciate you asking and always your interest in having us back to have this conversation. So the Regional Office of Gun Violence Prevention is in public health, which serves Seattle and King County at large. And we did launch the office officially in October of this past year. And I think what's really important to note about it, it's one of the few offices in the nation that are rooted in a Department of Public Health. And why that's important is back in just July of this year, the Surgeon General, for the first time in history, named gun violence a public health crisis. And he called on us across the nation to make sure that we were treating it as a public health issue. And what's important about that to me, and why I'm so excited about the week that you have this week and the focus that you're doing, is that public health recognizes that everybody has a role to play. So I am humbled and honored to serve our community here as the first ever director of a regional office of gun violence prevention. But what's important about that to me is I'm just keeping the seat warm until the next generation of leaders are really ready to take it over. And that we can keep building the profession of community violence intervention and interconnect it to government and work alongside of the creative community and all of our residents and citizens to play meaningful roles together in addressing gun violence.
Well, I really appreciate this. I think, yesterday, just talking to some elected officials and hearing their perspective on their roles, it's different when you're elected to be in a specific role. And you now have this amazing opportunity to shape and formulate what this office is going to be doing. Tell us a little bit about how that resonates with you as the first ever director of this office. And really, I'm always talking about how the King County, how Seattle, how up here in the Pacific Northwest, we have opportunities to create a model for the rest of the nation to follow. Tell us a bit about what that means in practical terms for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, great question. So I'm really appreciative that you mentioned the national work and how we, incubate things here and the things that are genesised here reach out across the nation. And, just a side note before I answer you, I think a lot about the work that you do in Converge of creating conversations around joy, even when we're exploring issues of pain and sorrow and suffering and trauma. And I think that's something that's happening that's exciting across the nation, is that that's starting to take hold, and that people are understanding how important the balance is, the context of joy, even when we're talking about the pain. Why it's so important to me really is that we have this opportunity to institutionalize something, because gun violence, I may not see the end of it in my lifetime. I'm getting old. And I have been doing this work over 30 years now. And I started in community work. I was blessed and honored to be a part of a program that was in a YMCA, and that grew through youth work to serve a lot of folks in community who are now leading in the work. And that's obviously a real privilege to see the legacy and to stand alongside of a lot of my peers and partners who are doing legacy work, some more of the folks that you're going to talk to this week. But I think it's really important that we recognize that we institutionalize something and make it permanent, because government comes and goes. You mentioned our elected leaders, and naturally, they serve their term, they move on to other priorities, or they have to because of our elections. But when we institutionalize something and we make it permanent, and we recognize its value add to stabilizing and creating long-term solutions. Every time we have a new elected leader who has a different set of priorities, we lose some ground. So I was really happy to see the folks that you had here yesterday, and to be able to hear from Executive Constantine, from the mayor, from Council President, from Renton, Ed Prince. And it's important that they all work together, but it's also important that they support this work becoming something permanent, and that we don't allow it to just be a government entity, but it's by and with and for community together.
Yeah, these kinds of approaches, I think, are really specific in terms of shaping the zeitgeist we're in. The fact that communities have always had solutions that haven't always been elevated, that have stayed kind of in these micro sections of our cities, of our neighborhoods, is real. And I really appreciate the understanding that it's important to embed those solutions as models for how to institutionalize this work. And so I really appreciate your answer, because that is the practicality that I see in your office as well. So we're in alignment there. I'm glad to be thinking in the same terms, because I think sometimes too, Eleuthra, you can kind of speak to this. We've had the unfortunate thing that happens where you have a leader, and that leader has the great ideas, and when that leader moves on, those ideas die.
That's right.
And so I respect your positioning and saying, I'm holding the seat warm for others to come in.
That's right.
How do you uplift that opportunity for others? How does your office bring in folks so that they can understand this work and what it means to push this work forward?
Well, thanks for asking that too. We're working really collaboratively, and one of the things I think that's important to note and to say is that, we treat gun violence as a public health issue, but to your point, the community is the cure. And we are just a conduit. We are just creating a space, a container, to be able to make sure that the good medicine of community work can be distributed, and that we can have wide uptake, because people do listen to what public health, for instance, is doing. I think it's important, too, that you recognize, and you mentioned earlier, too, we're talking about the elected leaders. The King County Executive back in 2013 recognized gun violence as a public health issue, which was kind of groundswell. It was really important. And for those of like myself who was in community work at the time, I paid attention to that. And I thought, all right, there is a place where we can plug this in. There is a place that this can potentially become institutionalized. And the community work and partners that were working then together have strengthened, and you'll hear more, I'm sure, this week about the work that community is leading. And it's not our responsibility to lead the work. It's, like you said, it's our responsibility to uplift the work. But to connect the grassroots, that are all the mobilization, all the good services, all of the innovation that happens in the grassroots community, to connect that to grass tops resources. That's my obligation. That's my job.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next, because I recognize too that, there's competition for these dollars, and it is real. Like this nonprofit industrial complex of, who has the best story that then brings more money, more resources, allowing them to build more capacity. That's a real thing. And so having offices like yours to really say, wait a minute, how do we fit in to this ecosystem that already exists is really important. So I appreciate you being able to share that vision. When you think about how folks have been receiving this office now, almost coming up on a year, tell us a bit about the response that you all have been getting from folks who've been able to tap into the work.
Thank you. So we've been funding, and even before we launched the office, we were invested in some community-led solutions initiative, the Regional Peacekeepers Collective, which is a great complement to work that was happening in Seattle with a group of organizations that were doing the Seattle Safety Initiative and pioneering and leading that work. And Regional Peacekeepers Collective expanded some of that work specifically into South King County, and those bodies of work are working in concert with each other. I think that what's been, the most powerful overall, Trae, is that as we think about the long-term solution, we are going to have to continue to reach communities that are not centered right away. So we focused on the disproportionate impact in the Black community. It's real. And the King County Executive also named racism as a public health issue in 2021. I think that's an important note because I think that those intersect. And I think gun violence is not a matter of an individual group or community's problem. It's all of our responsibility and all of our problem, and yet it disproportionately impacts very specific people because of the constructs of racism in this country. There are communities right now that are also suffering in the Latin community, in the East African community, and Harborview. You're going to, I think, talk this week with the Harborview medical staff, the intervention staff at Harborview. They're telling us through the data that they're seeing more and more young people again, and we are seeing that this is the leading cause of death for children and teens in America since 2020 for the first time in U.S. history, leading cause above any other cause of death. And so I think it's important to recognize that we're not anywhere near done. We're just getting started. And our office has been received welcome to be in conversations where we commit ourselves to partner and walk alongside and not assume leadership, but recognize that each community is distinct and unique and has unique and distinct needs, and that we have to tailor our approach. And we humble ourselves to that and are doing everything in our power to meet that where it is. And the other thing I think that's important is centering and prioritizing people with lived experience. And so even in my office, that is a priority, that we are bringing on staff with lived experience that are guiding and leading the work from within, that are contributing to changing and shifting the narrative. Working with you and having this opportunity to do that is really important to the cause. So the fact that you have me back on the show lets me know that we're heading in the right direction.
Well, I really believe in this work, and I'll say that, when I first heard, regional approach, I immediately thought that's it, because there's a lot of silo work happening. And while it is amazing, it's only impacting a very kind of small area. And so I want to talk a bit about the word regional. What kind of territories does that cover? And how do you figure out the ways to customize the approach? Because something that may work in Seattle may look very different in Spokane. Tell us a little bit about the territory when we think the word regional and what it actually means for your office.
So for us right now, and this is the current sort of construct, for us right now, we're talking about King County. So what I can talk about is there are obviously unique elements to different neighborhoods of the city of Seattle, Skyway and White Center and Kent and Auburn and Tukwila and SeaTac. They look different. And yet the impacts of Seattle that has, because of the cost of living, gentrified significantly displaced folks throughout King County. What we're focused primarily first on is scaling up the work so that no matter where people are, they can receive the relationship-based services that they might have formed in Seattle at a different point in time, and that continues to grow. But we're also working really closely with the state's Office of Firearm Injury and Violence Prevention at the Department of Commerce at the state level, and they're the only other Office of Violence Prevention in the state. And so we're also increasingly being approached by Yakima and Spokane and tribal communities, working right now with the Puyallup tribe and talking about the significant impact of gun violence in the tribal community. Quite frankly, America's original sin, gun violence, was a genocide of the original people here. And so even being able to be in that conversation and reflect deeply and back to that, and having them reach out and talking about how can we tailor an approach, what resources can you bring to bear and support that. And we're also affiliated with national offices of violence prevention across the nation. And the White House just opened its first ever survivor-led Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which is super significant. So we're all working together, sharing resources, sharing ideas, sharing best practices. And like you said, the things that are incubating or the genesis that were original here to Seattle, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to ambassador that to the national conversation as well.
I really appreciate hearing that, because I think one of the things that I love about living up here is we pioneer a lot. And I don't think people understand that. When you dive in to so many things that have actually worked kind of at the federal level, you see a lot of that kind of tracing back a bit. So that opportunity exists. Of course, before I let you go, I always got to give the opportunity for you to share out how folks can get engaged, because we want to make sure that throughout this week, we're sharing opportunities for folks to tap in. I mean, these calls to action to me are really important here on the Day with Trae, that we utilize this space as a way to get all of the folks out there watching to be engaged in this. So look right there. Let them know how they need to get engaged.
Thank you, Trae. I appreciate you inviting for that. So I think what's important to say to all of you, and please know that we are right smack dab in the middle of 100 days of action. And it was so exciting to walk up, first of all, to see the Day with Trae on the marquee outside of the gorgeous Paramount Theater, but also to see the words 100 days of action. And in these 100 days, and you'll learn throughout watching the episodes this week on the Day with Trae, you'll learn about the importance of firearm safe storage and how locking up your weapon contributes. You'll learn about how this is, the work is happening in community. And we always encourage you to learn more about the community organizations that are doing the work. You can find the community resource guide at rgv.kingcounty.gov. And that lists out some of the amazing work that's happening in the community organizations. But through this 100 days of action, there'll be a survey that will come out to all King County residents that will invite you to speak your piece and talk about the impacts of gun violence, your perception of gun violence, your experience with firearms, and your thoughts about safe firearm storage. So please continue to follow Converge Media, The Day with Trae, and look out for the 100 Days of Action, and especially the powerful work that's happening in community. Part of the 100 Days of Action, the partner work is 100 Days of Peace, which I think you'll learn more about this week on The Day with Trae. And Trae, it's just such an honor to be here, and just the action that you take by having us is really powerful.
I gotta tell you, I'm impressed with the work that y'all are doing. I know it is still seeding, and I understand, like, when you start something, you have to build the foundation for it. So just know we're always here to support Eleuthra. The work that y'all are doing is so powerful, and it is very necessary. So thank you so much for the ways that you're partnering with community and really modeling the way. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for being our partner in peace.
Absolutely. Y'all, we're going to continue this phenomenal discussion. Up next, we got Jamoni Owens in the building. We're going to be talking to the youth because their perspective is so vital. And while they are also not a monolith, it is important that we actually embed and be led by the experiences that they are having. So I'm so glad that he's going to be joining me right after this short break. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Start the show.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client discussing their fields and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. I'll see you guys in a few.
Big Tobacco thinks they know everything. They think they know you, your community, the places you go, and the way that you spend your time. They think they got you all figured out, down to a formula, a calculation based off of numbers of what they think they know. Show them they're wrong. Learn more at theythinktheyknowyou.org.
Welcome back, y'all, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now as we talk about this 100 Days of Action and this 100 Days of Peace is Jamoni Owens. Hi, Jamoni.
Hello, Trae.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's great to have you here. And honestly, we were talking so much about this approach, but I got to ask you your perspective on all that's being done. Kind of, it feels like it's being done around youth. How do we make sure that youth are more involved, Jamoni? Tell us about your perspective.
Honestly, I just want to say the youth, they're a product of their environment, you know, so they're only going to do what they know, you know, and when you teach them something different, you know, like taking them out to eat, or whether that's just the small things in life, like answering the phone, it goes a long way, you know, and building that relationship. You know, a lot of youth don't trust nobody, you know what I'm saying, because the background where they come from and whatnot, they don't have nobody, you know, that they can depend on, if that's at home or their peers or whatever. So I feel like it just starts with building that relationship and whatnot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that means being there for the small things. And so I agree with you 100%. I think there's an incubator that happens where youth connect to each other through like whatever shared interest, you know, maybe they grew up together, they were on the same athletic team, whatever. But there's this kind of incubator that happens with them. And while everybody is trying to make solutions around them, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How does it impact? How do we really dive in? So I appreciate you talking about that that personal relationship that's necessary.
Yeah, like I said, I said building that relationship, man. Like I said, they don't trust anybody. So having that impact, if that's, like I said, if that's taking them out to eat or just answering the phone or anything like that. Like where I come from South Seattle. I grew up in Rainier Beach area, if you guys don't know where that's at. We didn't have nobody. So them pulling up and actually like involving us in our community, you know, like actually coming down and driving down in our areas where it's not safe at and where anything can happen at, that means a lot. You know what I'm saying? That means that this person actually cares. He's putting himself in harm's way to come check on us.
See, now, what kind of organizations? I mean, there's lots of great organizations out there. I know that you were serviced by an organization. Now you're working for them. Tell us a bit about that transition.
So, I've been part of Urban Family since I was like 12 years old. You know, it's come back full circle. So now I'm about to be a mentor for Urban Family. Shout out to Paul Patu and Chantel Patu for giving me the opportunity. But, yeah, man, like I said, just being involved with us. Like, he been involved with me since I was 12 years old, and me and my brothers actually, you know what I'm saying, just involved with us and actually going to court dates and showing up for the most important stuff in our life, you know what I'm saying? Actually, graduations and stuff like that, like, you know, so everything came back full circle for me.
So tell us a bit about how you're going to take your personal lived experience into your mentorship, you know? Tell us about that.
Yeah, man, so I feel like I'm a living testimony, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of us feel like a lot of mentors, no knock against mentors, but they don't come from where we come from, if that means anything, you know what I'm saying? So how can you teach me something if you're not coming from where I come from, the background and whatnot? So I feel like if they see me, then they actually can feel like they can be something, they can do something, you know what I'm saying? Because I come from the same blocks that they come from. So,
yeah. You know, you were talking about something, and I talk to my family about this kind of stuff all the time. You know, back in the days, there was a big homie, you know, such thing as like, okay, that big homie is, you know, going to make sure we kind of, you know, even if we're out here in the street, they're going to make sure we're good. You know, we stay kind of more on the straight and narrow. And there's less of that now, right? And so I really want to talk about the impact that has on young minds, because I think there's a lot of young folks that are trying to figure it out on their own, because that kind of big homie, that kind of person that is right there alongside them is non-existent. Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I said, see, a big homie is somebody that's actually going to look out for you and do the right things for you and teach you the right things in life. You feel me? So I feel like a lot of big homies out here are misled themselves. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't have nobody. They didn't have nobody to teach them nothing. So if you don't have nobody else to teach you nothing, how are you going to teach anybody else something? You're just going to do what you know. And like I said, and if you only know this much, you're only going to teach that much. So like I said, I've been through a lot of situations in my life. I've came a long way. I'm 26 years old. I've lived in Seattle my whole life. I'm breathing, never been shot, living testimony. So hey, man, I feel like if I can do it, anybody can, you know?
I'm so glad to hear that you're going to be a mentor, honestly, Jamoni, because it is so necessary. And I agree with you 100% that, young folks don't really even respect somebody if they haven't been there, if they didn't live similar kinds of conditions. And, on the day with Trae, I've asked myself, okay, what can I do? I want to ask you, what can be done for folks who did not ever live that life, right? Who just know that we care, we love our young folks, we want them to know that they're loved. What kind of things do you see in your mind that can be done from folks who essentially have been on the outside of it?
Well, I can say right now, this right here is great. You know what I'm saying? Just giving us a voice and letting us come up and speak and, and have a say-so. And what goes on in our community is step one, I feel like. You know what I'm saying? So you just doing this right here and allow me to come and speak on your platform is just step one, I feel like. So you're actually doing great work as it is anyway right now. So
that touches my heart to where y'all, seriously, that touches my heart because I respect where young people are coming from. And I care so deeply. And, throughout Converge, Omari and I have shed many tears on camera learning about the loss of a loved one, the loss of a young person in our community, and how closely related we are. When we grew up in the CD, like this idea of, we're from, this community and it matters so much. And to hear you say that really means the world to me. So, of course, if folks are trying to tap in, right, like these young folks out there, I want you to give you some space to just talk to them directly about how they can be involved in these solutions that are being built kind of around them, because really they need to be led by them. Look right there in this camera right there.
Man, I know there's mentors all out King County, man. Just give them a chance, give them a chance to build that relationship because they might be the ones to save your life, you feel me? So just open up, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be the hard thing to do, but I feel like you should do it. You feel me? Open up, give them a chance. If they want to take you out to eat or whatever the case may be, just open up and give them a chance. You never know what they may do for you.
Jamoni, thank you so much for blessing us today.
Absolutely.
You have just made my entire day. I appreciate you. And thank you for bringing yourself into the work because it is so vital. It is so necessary. And anytime you need a message, you need a platform, whatever you want to do, Jamoni, you let me know. You come on back to the Day with Trae. We got you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, my gosh. Y'all just warmed my heart so much. I'm going to wrap up all of this warmth right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching the Day with Trae.
Seattle Opera presents the world premiere of Jubilee. Jubilee follows the historic Fisk Jubilee Singers' initial tours following the Civil War. While raising funds for the fledgling Fisk University, the group shared their music around the world, showcasing more than 40 African-American spirituals such as Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Deep River, and Wade in the Water. Jubilee is not to be missed. October 12th through 26th at McCaw Hall. Details at seattleopera.org.
Here on Back to Besa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Besa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Huge shout out to my guest today, Eleuthra Lisch with the Regional Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and of course, Jamoni Owens, with Urban Family, someone who was mentored and is now becoming a mentor. Shout out to organizations like Urban Family. I mean, I'm going to tell y'all, I'm so emotionally overwhelmed with what Jamoni just shared here because we can talk about the theories and the approaches, but folks who are on the ground, who come from it, they're going to know the best. And he just encouraged young folks to give mentors a chance. And that just blessed my entire life. Y'all have heard me talk about the fact that I'm raising 2 sons. One is 18, and I'm so grateful that he was able to just be a kid and have a good life. My other son is 10, and I always am thinking about them when we're talking about keeping our community safe. And for so many out there who are caring for young people, whether you birthed them or not, there is something that is inherently driving us to ensure that what we talk about at this level is actually hitting the streets. And Jamoni just shared with me in a way that I will always cherish, because it is exactly folks like him who we need to be leading this work, who need to be at the forefront of this work, and really who need to be able to impact all of you to be engaged in this work. We can talk to so many elected officials and all of these folks, but I'm going to tell you right now that there is something that cannot be replaced by really centering the voices of those who have been there and those who are not too far removed from it. Okay, that's the truth. Because when I think about attending young people's funerals and seeing young folks who, you ask them about their future and they don't have a clue. They're like, what? I ain't even thinking off that. I'm not trying to have a family. I'm not trying. I promise you, it was eye-opening for me. And I experienced that earlier this year, and it stayed with me ever since. Because in my mind, I'm thinking there's so many great things that are being done. How do we reach these young folks? And he just said it. You got to show up. You got to build relationship. You got to show them a different way, but it has to be real for them. It can't be a way that's checking something off of your own box. You got to just care. And that oftentimes means showing up at odd hours of the day, the weekend, in the middle of the night. He said taking them out to eat, just talking to them, building relationship. That's the real. And that's how community is built, y'all. So I'm encouraging you. If you know of a young person who is maybe, a little bit enticed into the lifestyle on the streets, and you have an opportunity to build a relationship with them, I'm encouraging you to do so, because we heard it right here. That's what's going to really make an impact. Thank y'all so much for watching today. We're going to continue this conversation. I'll be back with you tomorrow right here from the Paramount Theater. Until then, at 11 a.m., y'all. Peace. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.